It's a pleasure and honor to be there today. Thank you, Christian, and all people there. It was a very amazing discovering this institution in the middle of the Europe because it's very different of the other universities that we are habituated. Well, today was a journey to learn more about the new initiatives or original initiatives, to learn and feel more being together in this fight that almost is very, very difficult. I beg your indulgence to allow to read my speech because, as you understand, the English is not my maternal languages. That I need to clarify that. My mother is an English teacher. I don't know why English is not my maternal language. Never understand that, okay? Well, there are two reasons for this. I read that because the jokes is in the paper is better. The first having to do with respect, and the second with mercy. Respect for the language of Shakespeare, and mercy for you, my audience, because if I start talking about the topic that I like so much, I might not finish in the 40 minutes assigned to me. As you know, for the introduction, I need to change that. I was born in Argentina to a large family. This is why I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. I first lived in Mexico and then in Peru, where I met and married my wife. Now I live in Spain. Of my children, 4 are Peruvian and 2 are Spaniards. Okay, United Colors of Benetton is my home. All 4 countries had a good fortune to go to the last Soccer World Cup for joy to the all in the home. Unfortunately, too, for me and for my family, with my divided loyalties or for the peace of my home, none of them had a game with the other 3. We enjoyed the cup very, very well. In addition to my current position to the University of Navarra and the Population Research Institute, I have written a number of books. Yes, this is the translations to German on sex education and character education that written originally in Spanish have been translated into 7 other languages. Because of my works in this field, I have been able to travel and teach in all of countries in Latin America. So I'm going to speak to you today on a topic with which I am intimately familiar in the basis of first-hand experience. Latin America is a vast region comprised of 20 Spanish-speaking countries and 1 Portuguese-speaking and very, very, very big Brazil. There are a couple of smaller countries where French or English is spoken, but they will not be part of this lecture. With regard of these issues of the family, and in particular of the large family, the whole region shares some common features, but also exhibits some differences. In presenting this subject, I thought this would be best to focus on how society, the state, and the church treat families with my children, many children. I have many friends in throughout Latin America and will share with you their stories, their lived experiences to give you a sense of how the large family is faring today. Their experience is the result of a clash of cultures. On the one hand, you have the heroic virtuous practices of faithful Catholics in many marriages, and the other, the indifference of, or even the hostility of, an increasingly selfish society that often feels offended when a couple makes a decision to accept all the children that God wants to send them. These attacks, something subtle, something overt, are difficult to explain. It's difficult to explain that the micro-bullying that receive a lot of couples that have large families. It's very strange. Okay, general context. after the other conference that I qualify that like the African hurricane, Uju described very well not only the situation in Africa. If you change every part of this conference and put Latin America in place the Africa, he described the same situation that living in Latin America, imposed to comprehensive sex, stimulated programs, condoms, etc., etc. Let me start with some statistics additionally. Latin Americans, despite their deep love for the family, is suffering from the same demographic decline that's affecting the rest of the West. Birth rates are falling. According to a study by the Family Policy Institute, which soon will be published, in 1975, the fertility rate was 4.77 children per woman. By 2015, the fertility rate had dropped by more than half to 2.09. The decline is very pronounced. We can now say that Latin America is below the level of generational replacement, 2.1. In addition, over the past 2 decades, Latin American households have shrunk by almost 1 member per household. In 1997, there was an average of 4.4 members per household, but by 2016, the average has fallen to 3.6 members. Households with children have gone from being almost half of the total households in 1997 to only 1/3 of total households at the present. One demographic study from Uruguay states, with the importance of premarital cohabitation that gradually evolves into a long-term relationship, marriage is no longer a mandatory step for the formation of the family. This generates changes in regard to families, since the dissolution of cohabiting relationships occurs without the troubles and consequences that dissolution of marriage does. End of the quotation. Cohabitation is a striking change in cultural patterns, and one of the generates an abrupt decrease in the number of large families. The provisional nature of cohabitation, the absence of a strong and lasting marital bond, makes it impossible for the couples to adequately commit a solid common project, the rearing for children. In other words, what is happening in Latin America to a marriage and family mirrors what is happening in other regions of the world. Education and its effects. In Latin America, the prevailing concept is that the parents must guarantee the well-being of their children. We all agree on it. The problem is that beginning with the sexual revolution of the 60s, well-being is almost exclusively defined as material well-being. But what is the limit? Is 2 cars enough, or do we need 3? A television set in each room? Buy the last generation cell phone for every child, regardless of age? Do the vacation trips to Disney World in Miami or California? And I'm not inventing scenarios here. I am just recounting some of things I've heard from ordinary families in and around Latin America. Such materialistic views reflects what Pope Francis calls the culture of discarding. It is clear that there are no limits on material appetites. Of course, many families in the continents are limited in this regard because the poverty is widespread. My parents were hardworking. Indeed, they always had to work with 6 children to support. Our basic needs were met, but there was little left over for extras, and sometimes less. But the focus in the school and the society was entirely on material needs. At the school, they began to teach us that the best way to achieve prosperity was to have only 2 children, the model family. As population control propaganda became ever more common, over time, the best way to have a family became the only acceptable way to have the family. Jesus and Pilar, the Colombia couple with 4 kids, explained that to me. In Colombia, couples explain that they do not have more children because of economic constraints. But we must keep in mind that our country has been promoting the contraception in school for many years because Colombia was a pioneer on liberal sex education, comprehensive sex stimulation. And so, people practice contraception without thinking about it. The role of the state. What policy do government have regarding the family, and especially with regard to the large families? Do they promote the family or seek to undermine it? The first clue to consider in this regard is that of the 18 Spanish-speaking countries, none has a ministry or secretariat of the first rank that's responsible for the family. Only 2 countries, Argentina and Guatemala, have a subsecretariat, second level of bureaucratic importance related to the topic. And only half countries have a third-level offices. And it's necessary to clarify, these offices is promoting the new models of family, you understand? Gender, etc. Ecuador, for example, had a very well program called Plan Familia, Family Plan. Under the previous government, we, at the Population Research Institute, participate in its design. But the new government, which came into office in May 2017, in one of its first acts, eliminate the Plan Familia. In this place, they create an office to introduce gender ideology in education. Needless to say, gender ideology does little to encourage family formation and childbearing, and much to discourage it. Ecuador is not the only country that is doing this. So Latin America, very strong foreign-funded lobbies press to the agenda of gender ideology to be included in the educational curriculum. This is to generate some well-known reactions from the public and from the church. Pope Francis has warned us on several occasions about this pernicious ideology. Gender ideology promotes sexual relationships by distorting the meaning of word responsibility. For gender ideologies, to be responsible is to always use a contraceptive. Using a contraceptive is not being generous with the life. Rather, it is given to the fear of becoming parents. If sexual relations require no commitment, and if the state is constantly promoting contraception as the right thing, then the basis of the large family falls apart. The issue of the financial aid is another way in which the government gets involved in the issue. For example, the Argentina government had a subsidy that gives every family a certain amount of money for each child. It's universal, okay? But has a limit. Families of more than 4 children are non-helped. If you have a bigger family, they do not help you. That is, it is not really help large families, except those who are in extreme poverty. Our friend Liliana Negre, a former senator, made several bills to strengthen the large families, but she herself said, no politician is interested in approving these laws. Access to funds is another problem. According to the World Bank report in financial inclusion, unfortunately, I say literally, a significant portion of Argentine large families are not taken into account by the banking system. So they are vulnerable and have great problems when they aspire to get a personal loan. Without this funding, everything is complicated to large families. Mexican government is another example. The bureaucrats said literally, opportunity, the government aid program, will no longer benefit families with many children, but will support those with a few children. It's exactly these words of the person who is in charge of this program, because large families, plus different kids, and plus at the end of the month we receive a total amount, and say don't plus. It's preferably to the family with 2 kids. They believe and teach that family with fewer children is more like the progress. But in Guatemala, Sofía Aguirre, a sociologist at the Catholic University of Washington, discovered something very different. The quotation: "The results indicate that it is not the number of children themselves, but the characteristics of the home that makes the number of children be problematic. The lack of access to education and other assets or opportunities seem to be the root of what makes the number of children in some households a burden. But governments do not understand this." Okay, the role of the society. Let's review the case of Peru. I lived in Peru 10 years. In addition, my mother is Peruvian. I am very Latin American in the extension sense of the word. There I got married and I have 4 children. Peru is a beautiful country that loves lives and has given example of being pro-life and having parents who fight against gender ideology and the manipulation of education. But paradoxically, in Peru, it's not easy socially to be a large family. I had a very strange story in my experience as a father. Going out to the Mass, while I was buying some goodies to my children, a lady who had been in Mass with me and who did not know me, nothing, found out that my wife was pregnant with our 4th child. She looked at me angrily and with an attitude of contempt, and she told me that I was irresponsible and that people like me never change. It is true, we not change, but I think she did not say it as a compliment. It was, yes, I promise that there was more strange situation in my life. It was my first experience of social bullying because of my having a large family. It will not be the last one. Justo and Juliana have 7 children. They are very active in social networks and in pro-life activities. Justo has a doctorate in Europe and Juliana a master's degree. They confirmed, in opinion of Macron, this is not possible, okay? They confirmed to me that unfortunately in Peru, there are still many social microaggressions against the large family. And quotation: "People always think that the man is the guilty, that they have so many children and therefore is the one that receives the most rejection or sarcastic and disrespectful comment, and undermine disrespectful, okay, and comments. They are very uncomfortable situations that you end up getting used to do. My family always causes a scandal at the Mass I go to. And despite of what Cardinal Cipriani has spoken on several occasions in favor of large families. Marcos and Millie, parents of 6 children, have a similar experience. People seek to make you feel bad for having many children because the prejudice is that more children are under development, poverty, lack of control, they told me. What Macron said recently about educated women and the number of children, the same prejudice in Peru is lived daily. But Marcos has his theory about it. There is a conceit attitude in the part of the society, little self-sacrificing. And that is a cultural feature. For too many people, the most important thing is not to give, but to accumulate. Self-denial is for cholos. Cholos is the people from low strata, no much education, and few money. While comfort implies selfishness. Just in Peru, young people in Latin America aspire to emerge from a situation of poverty and have amenities. But they look for it with a mentality in which the large family has no place. They see it as a sign of sure failure, especially economic and social. The role of the church. As I said, I grew up in a family of 6 brothers. In the parish of our time, of about 50,000 inhabitants, we are only 4 families of a similar size. We are very famous in the town. I did not understand, but already in the 18th, most of my friends did not have more than 1 or 2 brothers or sisters. None of them had 5 like me. Florencia and Juan are also Argentinians and have 12 children. Florencia confessed to me their sorrow. When I told the priests that I was pregnant, they told me, you should learn the natural methods, with this tone, okay? Lay movements do support us, but the hierarchical church has always been cold. They never gave us a breath of encouragement. From Mexico, Alfonso and Guadalupe, parents of 5, told me, what we feel as parents of many children is that we are more in the glass. People are more focused on their children to point out that where you are wrong or how you are raised them. This happens everywhere. Even in the church, there's a total indifference. When we attend course of natural methods taught by the church, is always to have a few children. Emerges some questions. Is the Humanae Vitae message being used to suggest to generous families that it is better not to have many children? Do our priests or bishops really understand the greatness of a large family? Steve Mosher asked me, in your life you are here one predication in the Mass in favor of large family, and with very shame I recognize that never I hear priests teaching about that. I don't propose that the large family is only model, okay? This is the first point, but it's too strong that nobody talk about that. Clearly, there is much to teach about this in seminars. Marcos and Millie have no doubt. And I know that about the seminaries because I was seminarist for 4 years. Because for that I am philosopher, okay? And I know the life of the seminarians and the parents of the large family, and for that match those situations. Marcos and Millie have no doubt. Of course, our family attracts attention, but we see that the large family is apostolic by nature, a testimony of the action of God. To have a large family is to see everything with supernaturality. If supernaturality is not recovered, it is not possible to do this. It questions and attracts many people, but those same people are still afraid. Linda, from Ecuador, told me that her son, daughter-in-law, and her 4 grandchildren often feel socially discriminated. 80% of their friends think it's crazy to have so many children. But in return, with the church, the environment is totally different. They admire them for being open to life. This means that a good family ministry helps to support those families, and that in the ecclesial environment there are differences between some dioceses and others. In any case, Florence magnificently summarizes this positive and courageous thinking in the phrase in their children's sweater. And put in I have the photographs of that. I suppose I've used the PowerPoint to show you, but put in the back of the sweaters, I am the 7th or 8th or 9th time my parents said yes to life. And then the 12 siblings in the march for the life. Conclusions. The number of large families has declined throughout Latin America. The birth rate is in the steep decline. Also, it has not yet reached the levels of low fertility that Europe is experiencing. The decline is beginning to be worrisome. The governments of Latin America countries do not actively support large families. Being the father or mother of many children requires heroic virtues. In some places, society inexplicably bullies large family. People associate having children with ignorance and being uneducated. Or the other associate it with the inability to control one's sexual appetites. Even so, this view runs contrary to the general erotization of the culture. Sometimes these views are even found, unfortunately, within the presence of the church. Educational influences strongly condition the number of children that couples have. Fear of effort and sacrifice, but also real limitation and fear of failing to give sufficient financial resource to those many children. New scales of priorities are combined real economic problems and perhaps the lack of reflections about what divine providence is. We need to remember the legendary words of St. John Paul II, "Be not afraid." But large families in general rescue values of humanity and values for raising children that is very difficult to develop in the single-child families. I don't understand. I'm educated and have the doctorate of education, and I can't understand how it's more easy educate a single kid than the sixth one. Because if you are a parent of a single kid, you need to be available 25 hours per day, okay? With six, when I'm so tired, I go to my bed and ask the oldest that help the younger and solutional, okay? This is my formula perfect. I don't understand how and ask some friends that have one kids, how do you can educate your child? I don't understand you. It's contrafactual, okay? But larger families in general rescue values of humanity and values for raising children that is very difficult to develop in a single family. Parents often express that they are more sacrificed, but they feel happier. In some ecclesial environments, the potential of large families is not adequate assessed. One must be careful of the misunderstanding of what Humanae Vitae is and what natural methods actually are. The openness to life, all interviewers say, should not be reduced to not using contraceptives. It is necessary that bishops, family pastoral agents, priests, religious, and all the agents of evangelization incorporate these points for a more complete reflection, and together we create new visions that help young people to hope more, to face the challenge. This is more difficult. What is more difficult? Do a doctoral thesis or have 4 children? Achieve success at work or to raise 5 children? We encourage young people to surpass their expectations. We encourage them to achieve spectacular success in economic terms or in their professional lives. Why not challenge them also in the important field of giving life? I am totally convinced that we will be surprised by the results. Many would respond positively. As St. John Paul II said, if you request little from young people, they will not give you anything. But if you request a lot from the young people, they will give you everything. Thank you very much.